Well, hello, everyone. How about that game? Your Steelers are 3-0 in the driver's seat, in a really good spot to end up in the playoffs. Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's just talk about this game. I didn't think Herbert was going to play, and I thought he played really well until he couldn't anymore. And obviously the Chargers got hit really hard by injuries, but to key guys. But I think that takes away, I shouldn't have opened with that, because I think that takes away from the style of play that we knew would eventually prevail in this game, and who was more physical, who was better at the line of scrimmage, who could do it for longer. And clearly the second half showed us that the answer to that question was the Steelers, that just dominated the second half. And it really wasn't close at that point. It was somewhat of a blowout. So I like to get, and I think this is a really relevant for this particular show. Let's talk about the first half stats, the final stats, and then all sorts of observations. So it's 10-7 at the half. Fields, though, is 14 for 17, more on him later, for 105. 4 rushes for 8 yards on the ground, but one of them was a touchdown. Herbert, though, is 12 for 16 for 125, touchdown, no interceptions. Chargers had 173 total yards in the first half compared to 112 for the Steelers. They're averaging 5.8 yards a play compared to 4.1. Steelers only had the ball for 1340 in the first half, but the Chargers had it for 1620. Here's the kicker. 14 rushing yards in the first half for the Steelers. That's the number to know from this little discussion here. 48 for the Chargers, which isn't great, but 14 by the Steelers. Steelers weren't penalized in the first half. That was promising. That has obviously been something that's been an issue thus far. Chargers were only 2 for 15. Dobbins had 11 carries for 39 yards. You'll take that all day long in the first half. Johnston had 2 targets, caught both of them for 44 yards and touchdowns, and the Chargers had 4 tackles for loss in the first period, or in the first half. I thought they were winning up front in the first half, without question, when Pittsburgh had the ball. But here's how it ended up. Fields ended up 25 for 32 for 245, 1-1. 6 for 6 with a rushing touchdown. You'd kind of expect more rushing yards, but he played really well. Herbert didn't do much more. 12 of 18, 125, a touchdown, no interceptions. Heineke comes in, throws 2 passes, completes them both for 24 yards, but that's about it. Dobbins ends up with 15 carries for 44 yards. This guy was averaging 9.9 yards a carry before he came in here. Najee ended up with 18 for 70, very hard-fought yards, needless to say. But he was really effective closing this game out. Patterson had a big role. I don't know what that means for Warren, but Patterson had a big role, 4 for 33. Austin was a big game for him, hopefully a breakout game. Jefferson left this game pretty early with that eye injury, but he ended up with 4 for 95 and a touchdown. Pickens, 5 for 57. I expected more, but you could definitely feel his impact out there once again. Then Johnston really didn't do anything. He didn't do anything else. Got 2 targets, caught them both for 44, and had a touchdown off of busted coverage. Porter shut him down. 2 sacks by Herbig, 5 total for the Steelers. They started to really take over rushing the passer. Final stats here. 20 first downs to 10 by the Chargers. 7 for 14 on third downs compared for 3 out of 11 for the Chargers. Steelers ran 65 plays compared to 45 by the Chargers. Total yards, 346 by Pittsburgh to 168. We'll get to that in a minute too. Yards per play, a full yard and a half more. 5-3 versus 3-7 by LA. Ran for 114. Chargers only ran for 61 all day long. Penalties, 3 for 15 for the Steelers. You'll take it. 7 for 69 by the Chargers in a big cluster in the third quarter. Steelers actually lost the turnover battle and won. It was only 1-0. And it was an interception that I really don't blame Fields for. Tipped, bounced around, etc. But that hasn't happened much in the past. I think that's encouraging. You can overcome a turnover differential that's negative. 33-51 time of possession compared to 26-09. That is good stuff. This episode is brought to you by BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From the NFL to college, BetOnline has every stat every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to Online Casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and use promo code BELIEVE, capital BLEAV, all caps, and get in on the action. Bet online, the game starts here. Fields, really, really good in this game. Much better than I expected. We've seen some progress. I am actually now open to just making him the starter, and you guys know I was very hesitant to do such things. More on that later in the week. That obviously is going to be a massive conversation, but let's just talk about what he did. He completed 78% of his passes. That strike to Austin was really good timing, really good accuracy. That was the most encouraging thing to me, was the timing and accuracy. I mean, those are the things that this guy's been missing. Didn't have to rely on his legs, really didn't hardly even use them at all. So I thought he was very composed. I thought they had a good game plan, and he really executed on time and things that I've really questioned about the guy. He only scrambled. Think about how different this is than early in the season. Only scrambled on one of his 35 dropbacks. That's the lowest scramble rate of his in any game of his entire career. He threw only 2 incompletions on passes under 10 air yards. Not all of them are easy throws, but they're the easier throws. 22 of 24. For 149 in that interception. His completion percentage over expectation from 1 to 10 yards was plus 17.3%. Just trust me on that. That's really, really good. And for the day, it was plus 10.6 completion percentage over expectation, which means the average quarterback expectations would have been like a 10% accuracy rate worse than what Fields did today. That was the 5th highest mark of his career. So really, really good stuff. And these are kind of scrambled, but I've just got like a page of notes, as I usually do, just instant reactions. Tomorrow we'll dig in heavier at snap counts and a second viewing. But early in this game, my note was Steelers aren't blocking anyone. I mean, like, there's nowhere to go. Protection was bad. I mean, they weren't blocking anyone early there. And I give Herbert a lot of credit. Again, these are going to be kind of disjointed thoughts, but that touchdown bust that Quentin Johnson ended up scoring on, Herbert saw that in an instant. I mean, Herbert's mind was out there processing really well, and his arm was making wonderful throws, but his ankle couldn't hold up. Bosa and Highsmith out. Jefferson eye injury. All those things happened pretty early. Not easy to overcome, but I told you guys going in that the edge groups on both sides of the ball were really, really deep, and some of the strengths of the team. We're going to talk about Mason McCormick a little bit. So I want to hear a little bit more of an explanation, but he definitely rotated / substituted, semi-replaced Anderson at times. But he also was part of a 6-man offensive line, which of course would have been Broderick Jones had Fautanu been able to be in the right tackle. But I wonder if that's here to stay, because you just look at the girth of that 7-man offensive front. 5-0 lineman, McCormick is an extra guy, and Washington. I mean, that is so much beef with a 7-man front with Justin Fields behind it, Najee Harris behind him. I think that's here to stay. And I've been kind of calling for it for a while, and McCormick did great with it. I mean, he filled in fine. That INT, I guess it wasn't great. It was a little bit low thrown to Washington, but it got batted around, and and then really shortly after is when Herbert left. Slater who I think is one of the absolute best left tackles on the field. Unfortunately for them, gets hurt. He wasn't on the field for the sack that injured, Herbert. And then not that much longer in the second half, they lose Alt. Like, losing Slater, Alt, Bosa, and Herbert is maybe the worst four you could pick, And Bosa's an injury-prone guy. Losing both tackles late in the game sure didn't help matters, and we understand the value of Herbert. I still think the Steelers win, though. Herbert is playing really well, but I still think the Steelers probably win this game without the injuries, but it sure made the second half a flat-out blowout. I mean, they didn't have a first down in the whole third quarter. I did think, especially early, the Charger defense, which I might have underestimated a little bit, was playing fast. They were flying around, making a lot of plays. Derwin James really stood out to me in that regard, hitting, flying around, doing a lot of different things, but just being a playmaker out there. He may get his career rejuvenated in this defense. But the penalties that the Chargers kept taking all throughout the third quarter was just insane. I mean, it was just backbreaking stuff for them. And then at that point, I'm just thinking, wow, they're really starting to wear out this Chargers D. And then when they got to the 4-minute mode to close the game out, they were utterly dominating. The Steelers' offensive front, the suffocating defense. And this might not be TJ Watt's greatest statistical game or greatest highlight game, but like I mentioned with Pickens, you could feel his presence. He just demanded so much attention in this game, made everyone around him so much better. I mean, he smoked Alt on that 3rd and 5 when it was a true 1v1 situation, which was rare. When they threw the ball, rarely was Watt getting 1v1, even against Alt, who's an impressive player. But he gets his 99.5 career sack. I'm sure we'll get the next one next week, if not the week after that. And he really impacted this game a great deal. So, after allowing 0 pressures on 10 pass blocking matchups, including an early holding call against TJ Watt in the first half, Alt allowed 2 pressures and a sack on 5 matchups against Watt in the second half before leaving the game in the fourth quarter. So in the second half, the small sample size we had, Watt got a pressure or sack on half of those snaps. Watt only missed 2 snaps all game. 3rd straight game this year playing 88% of the snaps or more. Might need to calm down on that. I don't know if it'll be possible now with Highsmith, but good for him. And part of it's because the offense just gets first downs. You're not out there as much. After Alex Highsmith left the game with an injury at the end of the first half, Nick Herbig created a career-high 4 pressures on just 8 pass rushes, including 2 sacks. We've been saying this for 2 years now. Every time he's out there, whether it's 2 snaps or 20 snaps, he makes a play at a ridiculous high percentage rate. He generated 3 pressures in 4 matchups against Trey Pipkins, the backup, and another pressure on 2 matchups against Slater, who's really, really good. Herbig's an amazing playmaker. He really is. Easy to overlook, but Cam Hayward has been fantastic and was fantastic in this game. Mostly against the run, but he is a powerful dude that isn't missing a beat. Jackson, he got banged up, didn't seem serious, but I think he's been an excellent addition as that other corner. And I know their receivers aren't great, but if that's your number 2 corner and Porter's doing battle with number 1s all over the field, I think you could do a lot worse than Jackson. I also thought overall this was a good special teams game. I'm comfortable with the punter. I love Boz. Pierre's out there back with the team, being a gunner, making a obvious effect on the game. Really good, encouraging, but I don't want to get over my skis on Austin. Yes, he made a big play. We all know he's fast. But I did think he definitely stepped up when Jefferson went out. And there's playmaker skills there. And as big as physical as this offense is, I think you can get away with a smaller guy that has rare speed. So we might look back as this is a breakout game for him. Or it could be somewhat of a one-off. I've never thought he's bad, but it's great to see him really changing the game. Throughout the course of the game, the Steelers got 4 first downs via penalty. Chargers got 0. That's just one of those hidden yardage things I like to bring up. One of the things that was a real problem coming into this game is lack of explosive offensive plays. Boy, that changed. I mean, there's someone that adds it up. I'll get it to you tomorrow, but the number of explosives really had the spike in this game. Just 12-yard runs, 15-yard receptions, the Austin play. So the explosiveness going into this offense really is significant to me. Now, here's one of the craziest things you'll ever see. You know, we opened this podcast saying, not there's a tale of two halves, but it was a competitive first half that the Chargers probably got the better of them, and then a dominant second half by the Steelers. The yardage discrepancy in the second half of this game, the Steelers produced 234 yards in the second half of this game. What do you think the Chargers produced? -5. They had -5 yards from scrimmage in the second half of this game. That is bonkers to me. Last thing, somebody tweeted this at me. The Steelers are the first team in the last 20 years and only the 8th since 1970 to allow 300 or fewer yards and 10 or fewer points in each of their first 3 games to start a season. Think about that. 3 games in a row. I threw this out there last week, and I believe it now, of course, more than ever. But I think this is the best defense in the NFL. I really do. And they're in a great place. So I'll come back at you tomorrow. Much more to discuss. All kinds of things I'm sure to break down that I will see on second viewing and, upon further review. I wanted to get this to you as soon as possible. Thank you very much. Over and out.